isn't going away. The Washington Redskins decide to keep Robert Griffin III as their backup quarterback and did not release him on Saturday, even though Kirk Cousins was named Washington's starting quarterback earlier this week. Redskins owner Daniel Snyder and President Bruce Allen want to keep Griffin despite the financial risk associated with retaining the former Heisman Trophy winner. Now, Griffin, who has been sidelined since August 20th with a concussion, was scheduled to consult with an independent neurologist Friday. The Redskins still are awaiting word on the results of that exam. Kate, I thought they should have let him go.
Right.
Give the guy a break. Is RG3 being treated fairly?
I love when the word fair is in something, and Will Kane and I are on an ESPN set together, because I feel like we have a fundamental difference
on the value of fairness.
Yeah, and how to assess fairness,
right.
And whether it should be like a human or a law. But in this RG3 case, it kind of splits the difference there, because it's like what's good for the Redskins and what's good for RG3.
Yep.
And this is why I'm confused, because it seems like what's good for the Redskins and RG3 should be the same thing. I don't understand why RG3 is still with the Washington Redskins. You can tell me that it's because the Redskins they need another QB. Why get rid of a QB who you think at least can perform at an NFL level? But then there's everything else that's coming around with that. And there's also his $16 million option that they picked up that if he gets hurt, is problematic for them. So they're taking a huge, huge risk here. And I don't really totally understand the logic behind it. If you don't think he's good enough to start, why would you risk having to pay him $16.3 million next year? I'm not sure if you think he's not better than Kirk Cousins and possibly not even better than Colt McCoy, why you would put your organization on the line for $16 million. Now, also, as far as RG3 goes, when we talk about what's fair, I would think you would want to find a balance. I know no organization is going to release a player who can benefit them just because perhaps a player would perform better elsewhere, or for whatever circumstances that player would prefer to be elsewhere. I know it's a business. You're not going to do that. But when the balance here is that RG3 is sort of seems to be held captive in that organization over the last few years, and the benefit to the Washington Redskins, I'm not seeing the upside. Why then are you keeping him within that locker room, within that organization?
So your argument is that RG3 is being treated unfairly by the Redskins?
My argument is that I actually believe it would be fair to both parties to let him go. I don't even understand the logic.
Right.
There's that small kernel of like, well, he's a decent QB. Why would you get rid of a decent QB?
Okay, so what I would suggest is Robert Griffin III has been treated more than fairly by the Redskins organization. That does not mean, however, that he hasn't been mismanaged. You can be mismanaged and be given more than every chance for success, been treated more than fairly. I look at many quarterbacks in the NFL and I think, wow, what an unfortunate situation did they find themselves in? How unfair that David Carr had 4 offensive coordinators, a new offensive coordinator every year, and a horrendous offensive line, and he led the league in sacks year after year. David Carr was a massive talent that could have been great. Vince Young was a unique talent put into a terrible situation by a coach in Jeff Fisher that did not want him. No attempt to adapt to his unique talents. That is unfair. Robert Griffin III was tailored to, if Mike Shanahan is to be believed. When he was drafted, Mike Shanahan said this was a guy that came out of Baylor that couldn't read a route tree, that couldn't pre-read a snap to see what defensive coverages are. He had none of that at Baylor. So what Shanahan has suggested, and again, if Shanahan is to be believed, they adapted that to RG3. They ran more spread in 2012 when he was incredible. Something happened between 2012 and 2013. He had fewer offensive plays tailored to his strengths, an offense that wasn't as conducive to his talents. What happened? Well, according to Shanahan, RG3 happened. He went to Dan Snyder, and Dan Snyder and RG3 went to Shanahan and said, more drop back passes, more traditional offense. He's getting hit too much. Make him a traditional talent. Shanahan said he's not a traditional talent. We have to adapt this to RG3. And ever since then, whether or not it's been Shanahan's later years or Jay Gruden's years, there's been this effort, because RG3 wants it to be, to make him a traditional quarterback, which does not suit him. So what I'm telling you is he's had offenses tailored to him. He's had offenses adjusted according to what he's wanted. He's had ownership back him up through those attempted adjustments. And now he's had ownership essentially guarantee he's going to get $6.5 million this year to be a backup quarterback. I have a hard time looking at any of that going, where's the unfairness? He was given every opportunity and it just didn't come through for him.
You missed one key distinction between what happened in 2012 and RG3's performance in 2013.
Injury?
Yeah. An injury that a lot of people would say was a result of mismanagement by the Redskins. Now you have him injured again with a concussion. that a lot of people would point out happened because RG3 was in a game and was placed in the game by coaches and in a position that a lot of coaches would not have put their quarterback. That strikes me as possible mismanagement. The problem with the theory there that Washington has given him every chance is that the only way to prove your theory is to see how he plays elsewhere. If he plays elsewhere and he can't succeed, well then, yeah, you're right. Washington was the place where they gave him every possible chance. They tailored the offense to him. And maybe he just isn't an NFL quarterback. But we actually can't prove that right unless we see how he plays in the NFL. And we're not getting to see that right now because he's stuck in Washington.
Making $6.5 million.
True, if it's about money. If the conversation's about money, well, then I don't feel bad for RG3. Let's take the money out of the conversation and actually talk about a guy trying to do his job, trying to prove himself, and actually not getting that chance.
Yeah, I will say this. If, again, Shanahan is to be believed, it wasn't about the injury. Shanahan says it wasn't about the injury, but rather his ability to process the NFL game, to learn and adapt to NFL routes and plays. And he says RG3 simply didn't do that. I said he's been given more than a fair shake, and yet he's been mismanaged. The mismanagement is Dan Snyder undercutting coaches, undercutting mid-level management, and allowing RG3 to dictate changes in the offense. So he's been treated fairly, but that also means he's been mismanaged because that's not the way an organization should work.
Well, Mike Shanahan was the guy who took all the heat for together, okay?
I don't know. This smelled a little bit to me like maybe they're not totally trusting in Kirk. That was just
maybe a little bit of that.
My 2 cents there. At least we know with Daniel Snyder, he's always had his back. So we talk about targeting RG3 in a negative way. Wait till you see this video. This is a high school game over the weekend that you just can't believe. Players targeting a referee will react to it right after the break. Michael Jordan is on Kevin Durant's all-time starting 5, no surprise, but who else made the cut? We'll reveal that later in the show, and we have a quick hitter for you on this Labor Day version of First Take. Keep up with today's show by heading over to IG, where you'll find today's topics. Make sure you tag a friend or join in on the debates by leaving your own takes. This is First Take.